In this lesson, we are going to talk about Gradle Wrapper. The Gradle Wrapper allows the developer to run the build with a specific version of a Gradle without the need for a local Gradle installation. Now let's navigate to the Gradle Documentation and search for Gradle Wrapper. I'm interested in showing you the wrapper files. As we know, the build.gradle will be on the root level, and under the Gradle folder there is a wrapper folder, and inside that you will find the Gradle Wrapper jar and the Gradle Wrapper properties. The Gradle Wrapper jar is a jar file containing the code for downloading the Gradle distribution, and the Gradle Wrapper properties allow you to configure the wrapper runtime behavior. For example, you can set the Gradle version that will be used for downloading and executing the wrapper, and there will be a script files, Gradle W and Gradle W.bat. Actually, the wrapper is a batch script on Windows, which is the .bat file, and a shell script for Unix-like environment such as Mac or Unix distributions, as in the Gradle W file. So let's see this layout in our project. So here's the Gradle folder, and underneath the Gradle folder we can see the wrapper, and this is the Gradle Wrapper jar, and this is the Gradle Wrapper properties, where you can change Gradle Wrapper configurations. For example, this is the version number, and right now if we run a Gradle Wrapper, you will notice that we're gonna download version 6.1.1, and these are the batch script files. This is the Gradle W.bat on Windows, and if you look at it, it's very well documented. For example, at line 33, you can add default JVM options here. It's up to you if you would like to change this file, but for general purposes you really don't need to. And if we look at the shell script for Unix-like environment, the Gradle W, you can see here, start with shell script, and we can make some changes if you want to. For example, we can change the default JVM options here, like what we've seen in the Gradle W.bat file. Now I'll close all these files. To run the Gradle Wrapper for the first time, I'm gonna do Gradle W. Since this is a Windows machine, if it's a Unix-like system, you can use /Gradle W. The build successful. Now notice here the version. It says welcome to Gradle 6.1.1. So since I used the Gradle Wrapper, it downloaded version 6.1.1. So the specified version of a Gradle, which is in the Gradle Wrapper properties, version 6.1.1, is automatically downloaded and used to run the build. As a developer, you don't have to install your own version of Gradle. Once you have the Gradle Wrapper ready, everyone in your team can use the same version. Now let's check what version of Gradle I have on my machine. And run Gradle -v. As a matter of fact, the version that is installed manually on my machine is 6.5.1. I really don't have to keep installing and maintaining a different version of a Gradle locally. It's best practice to use the Gradle Wrapper to make sure all developers in your team are in sync. Now let's change the Gradle version to version 6.4.1. And I'll clean the terminal, Ctrl L, and I'll run again Gradle W. And you'll notice right away start downloading version 6.4.1. And here we can see welcome to Gradle 6.4.1. Ctrl L to clear the terminal. Another way to change the Gradle version is to use the Gradle Wrapper command and specify the Gradle version. Gradle W Wrapper Gradle version and the version number. Let's say we want to download version 6.3 and build successful. Gradle W-V. And it's version 6.3. And once we change it to version 6.3 using the command line, Gradle automatically changed the version in the Gradle Wrapper.properties file. And you can see here it became 6.3. Let's clear the terminal again. Another way to set the Gradle version is to add the Gradle Wrapper task in the build.gradle file. I'll add here tasks.named and between parentheses the task name, which is wrapper, and I'm gonna set the Gradle version equal to 6.5.1. In the terminal we're gonna run Gradle Wrapper without specifying version in this command, and once we run the Gradle Wrapper it will pick the wrapper task and download the specified Gradle version. And let's do Gradle W-V. And as we see here, Gradle 6.5.1. To sum this up, you can set the version of a Gradle distribution that is required by the wrapper in 3 ways. The first way is changing the Gradle distribution version in the Gradle-wrapper.properties file. And the second way is to run Gradle W wrapper task and pass to it the Gradle version, as we've seen earlier. And the third way is to add the wrapper task in your build.gradle file and invoke it with the Gradle wrapper task from the terminal. Also, in this lesson, we have used a couple of commands to check the Gradle version. The first one, Gradle-V, which is used to check the local Gradle version that was installed on your machine, and the Gradle W-V, which is used to check the Gradle version which the wrapper is installing for us. But the main question, why is the Gradle wrapper is so useful? Let's say you are using a build server like Jenkins to build our project, and we need to make sure we are building our project on the build server with the same version we use during our local development. So by including the wrapper task, we will make sure that Gradle is always gonna run on the same version without worrying about installing the version manually to your machine or to the build server. Anyone build this project will use the same version specified in your Gradle properties. On another note, to learn additional information about Gradle Wrapper or other commands, you can ask for Gradle Help using Gradle Help command, Gradle Help --task and wrapper. And over here we can see the detailed task information for wrapper. This is the path and type and what options. For example, we use the Gradle version. You can set the distribution URL if you want to, and a little description here and a group. Also, Gradle documentation on their website is pretty useful. You can find tons of information over here. You can just search for the command you are looking for and you will get all the details.